Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real-life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I'm just getting started with my Christmas vacation. I have a whole 2 weeks to myself where I can sleep as long as I want and work on all the things that I want to do and just do all the things that I want to do that I usually don't have time to do. It's such an amazing time. It's the one time of year that I get to forget what day it is and just relax. I look forward to it every single year. It's also a great time to think about this past year and reflect on everything that has happened and make plans for next year. It's amazing to me everything that can change in a year. I already have a whole list of resolutions for next year that I'm really excited about getting started on. I want to help you with your resolutions too. Not just keeping your resolutions, but making them into lasting habits. So I'm offering a free email challenge that's all about New Year's resolutions. It starts January 1st, and every day in January I'll send you an email that is all about habits and changing your resolutions into habits so that we can make them into lasting habits rather than just something that we do for a couple of weeks in January. You can find all the information on my website, which is infjwoman.com, and I'll also put a link to it in the show notes. Okay, so I want to start off this week with a listener question about our episode last week. It's from Jessica, and she says, okay, so I've read what you've written about the various INFJ personalities we do, and yes, that. I've done that my whole life, and once I got older, I got over it with friends. I'll still tend to perform in the workplace somewhat. I am to the point, though, that I do want friends, but I meet people, it starts off okay, but then I end up not being able to handle either surface conversations that are one-sided because as soon as I talk, it's instant face glassing on their end, or one-sided friendships where I'm doing all the pursuing, and what I get back is likely negative because for some reason, people feel like they can dump on me. So then I just stop trying to make friends. But I see all these people with a tribe, and I get upset because I want one. But then the cycle starts all over again, and I end up self-isolating. Do you have any advice? Do you have a tribe or a crew? Jessica, thank you so much for sending in your question. I understand where you're coming from 1,000%. It has been a lifelong struggle for me making friends. I look at people who've had friends since they were in preschool or first or second grade, and I envy them. I really do, because I've never had friends like that. All of the friends that I've had in my life seem to come and go at different parts of my life. One friend that I have now, I've had for 10 years, and even that friendship has been an on again, off again type of thing. Another big challenge that I have is that I just now turned 34, and I don't have a family, I don't have kids. So most of the people my age are married and have children, so there isn't a lot that I have in common with them, even when I do make friends. It's just been in the last couple of years that I've found some new strategies to make some new friends. I worked for when I first moved to Boston, I went to work for a nonprofit, and I made a couple of friends there that are pretty good friends. But again, they both have families and they both have husbands. So when we go out to dinner, which, they don't have a lot of time to do that because of their families. But when we do get the chance to go out, there is a lot of times where it's like, they're talking about their kids. They both have babies and they want to talk about their husbands. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, what else? Like, is there something else that we can talk about too? It's definitely a learning process for me, for sure. I'll give you some advice that my mom used to give to me, and every time she said it, I would roll my eyes and be like, I don't know why you're telling me this because this is ridiculous. This is not going to work. But then I got a little bit older and a little bit wiser, and I was like, oh, man, my mom was right. That's happened to me a lot recently, actually. One of the things that she always would tell me is to do something that you like to do. Maybe take a class or find a new hobby. Anything that will put you around a group of people that are doing something that you like to do. So I'll give you an example that I kind of stumbled upon, actually. There is a band that I like to go and see perform. A lot of people call them a boy band, so don't judge me for that. But it's a lot of fun to go to their concerts, and they also do other types of events. So they did an autograph signing for a new CD that they had out in New York earlier this year. And when they went on tour this summer, they do meet and greets as well. So I went to the autograph signing in New York, and I've been to a few meet and greets. And through doing that, I've met other people that I see at all of these events. And they're people from all over the world, people from all different kinds of backgrounds. But the thing is that we already have one thing in common. So even though it's hard for me to go, because most of the time I go by myself, it's hard for me to go by myself, but I know that once I get there, I'm already going to have one thing to talk about. And once you have just that one thing to talk about, then that'll give you the opportunity to talk about more things and talk about more things. When I was in New York, to go to the autograph signing, I was standing in line for like 14 hours. I know it sounds ridiculous. I wouldn't do it for any other thing. It was completely ridiculous. And it was March and it was outside, so it was extremely cold. But so all the people I was standing in line with, we had two things in common. We were really excited about the autograph signing, and we were really cold. So that gave us two things to talk about. But when you're standing there for so long next to people, you start talking to them just because you're bored. And so I started talking to the ladies who were in line behind me and realized that I had something else in common with one of them. And we have become good friends because of, these three different things that we have in common. So basically what I'm saying is there are a lot of different ways that you can make friends. And I know that as introverts, as INFJs, it's really easy for us to get into this pattern of isolating ourselves and of just wanting to be at home, wanting to do our own thing, and not wanting to put ourselves out there. Because I do that a lot. But it's also important that we recognize our need to connect with other people and to be around other people. There's a reason that you have that longing for a friendship, because you need that connection in your life. So I would encourage you to find something, and it doesn't have to be a boy band. It doesn't have to be concerts. It can be anything that you like or enjoy. Something else that I've done that I really like, I like to put together scrapbooks. It used to be a big thing. I don't know that it's as big now, but putting together scrapbooks and cards with rubber stamps. It's incredibly expensive and you end up with all this stuff that is really expensive and you don't want to use it because it's so expensive. I think bullet journals are the bigger thing now, which I have one and I love them. But I used to take classes, and when you go and take the classes, it's usually a smaller group of people. But again, you're all there for one reason, and so you already have something to talk about. But then it's a smaller group of people, so you can just talk to the people that are next to you and practice a little bit and see what happens. There are a few other places that you can look as well. Some places that I've met a lot of people through is my blog. Now, a lot of these people I haven't actually met in person, but I've learned in the last couple of years not to discount Facebook friends or email friends because they're still friends too. They can still be there for you when you have an issue. They're still available to talk to you, and some of them become more than just Facebook friends that you say hi to and happy birthday to, and that you like their posts. Some of them you can transition into talking to them on the phone. It's all about how you approach it and how much time that you put into it as well. I've also met a lot of amazing people through this podcast. Just the simple thing of me asking people to send in stories has introduced me to so many people. And reaching out to people to do interviews with has introduced me to a lot of people as well. So there are a lot of different ways, and ways that you might not even think about, that you can connect with people and that you can get that need for connection fulfilled. One of the biggest things, though, that is important to be able to learn how to do is to stop putting up that front. As INFJs, we are massive people pleasers. And instead of being ourselves, when we meet somebody new, we quickly determine what it is that we think that they want. And we build this whole persona for them. So it's like we're a completely different person with every single person that we meet because we're giving them what we think that they want. But the older that I get and the more that I learn about doing this and the more that I see the effect that it has on the relationships that I've been in, the more that I realize that's not the best thing to be doing. It's so incredibly difficult to please every single person that you're never going to do it. You're just going to be chasing this dream you're never going to see it. It's never going to happen. I've also realized that a lot of the friendships that I make when I'm putting up this front, they're not real friendships because people aren't interested in me as a person. They're interested in this front, who they think that I am, but it's really just somebody that I'm pretending to be. And then when the truth comes out, because eventually it always comes out, then they're like, oh, that's not what I thought that you were. Maybe I don't want to be friends with you anymore. I know that this is something that I've struggled with, and it's something that I continue to struggle with. And just having that awareness is enough to be able to shift it. In fact, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because it's really a recent revelation for me. The question that I've been thinking about a lot is, why do we do this? And as I said before, it comes from people-pleasing tendencies, but why do we have this need to please people? A while ago, there was an episode where I talked about self-love and about that feeling of not belonging, of not being enough, of not being lovable just the way that we are. And I know that this is the root of the problem, that somewhere in our lives, somebody has told us that we're not enough just the way that we are. And we've come to believe this. We've come to believe that we're not lovable as we are, showing people our real personality right up front. That we don't belong with this personality that we have. I know that there have been a few different people in my life that have led me to believe that there's something inherently messed up about my personality. And that's one of the driving factors for me with this podcast and with the blog and with my Instagram is that I want to make sure that I know that my personality isn't messed up. And the more that I think about that, the more that I realize maybe there are other people out there who think that their personalities are messed up too. But I want to make sure that you know that that's not the case. That just because we're different than other people doesn't mean that there's anything that's messed up about us. And the more that we have that awareness and the more that we accept our personalities the way that they are, then the more that other people will accept us. I have an example of this too. One of the people who's in my tribe, she's an amazing lady who I absolutely adore. She has this personality that's very straightforward and upfront, and she's kind of a little bit brusque about things. She will tell you exactly how it is. And she'll say things like, "Oh, I'm selfish. I know that. It's part of my personality and I accept it." And when I first met her, I thought, wow, that's a little bit much. And she was hired actually as an administrative assistant for the company that I worked for. And I had to share an office with her. There was a pretty big room, but still it was pretty small because there was a lot that was going on. And I even went to my boss and I told her, I was like, look, I don't think this lady's going to work out. She's kind of a lot, and I really think that you should reevaluate this whole situation. And my boss looked at me with this really confused look, and she goes, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, have you spoken to this lady?" And my boss looks at me and she goes, "Well, I'm really surprised that you would say that because she seems a lot like you. And maybe you should get to know her a little bit better because you might actually like her." And I was like, "What? Well, why would you think that I'm anything like her?" But then after that conversation, I started paying a little bit more attention and I started talking to this lady a lot more, and I realized that we are very similar. It's just the difference is that my friend, this lady who's turned into my friend, she doesn't put up a front. She doesn't ever tell anybody that she's different than what she is. So I wanted to give you a few examples of that. One of the things about me is that I don't really like to be around people. And I know that's strange because I like connecting with people and I like helping people. I just don't like to be around people. So one of the things that I hate about work is what I call mandatory fun. So anytime they decide to get everybody in the office together for staff meetings, or a lot of times they do lunch, especially around the holidays. If you guys have a job, you know what that's like. It's like torture. So anytime that there's any type of mandatory fun, I put on a happy face and I go and I pretend that everything's okay and I participate for as long as I absolutely have to, and then I leave. And I'm usually one of the first people to leave. But I try not to complain about it and, act like everything's great. So my friend, she doesn't put on a happy face. She puts on one of those, "Are you freaking kidding me?" faces. Like, really? We have to do this? And she'll say things like, "Well, I'm not going because I don't want to be around people." Or, "This is super awkward." All those things that I wouldn't say. And she was surprised to learn that I wasn't really interested in mandatory fun. So when we had to go to those things, we would go together and we would leave together. So our office was upstairs and they usually held these things downstairs. So we would walk downstairs together and we would have this plan to where we would wait so that we're not the first people. In fact, sometimes we would wait like 30 minutes so we wouldn't have to stand in line for food. And we would just go downstairs and get our food and make an appearance so everybody saw that we were there, and then we would leave. And for some reason, it seems so much more, better when you go with another person rather than when you're just doing it by yourself. But there were a lot of things like that she was just like, and she would ask me too, she still asks me, like, "Why do you pretend to like it if you don't? I don't understand." And I'm like, I'm standing there staring at her going, how can you not pretend to like it? Like, how is everybody else okay with that? And she'll tell me, I don't care if people are okay with that. They cannot be okay with it. And that makes me super uncomfortable. I mean, from one perspective, I'm like, okay, that's super awesome. But then on the other side of it, it's like, oh, but people are going to be mad at you. And she's like, so let them be mad. They'll be mad. It's fine. I don't care. They don't have to be happy all the time. I really hope that I can get to that place. And that's one of my goals for next year, honestly. And it's not, for me, I don't want it to be a rude or an abrasive place, but just to be accepting of the fact that I am who I am and I don't want to change that for anybody else. And also to be okay with the fact that not everybody's going to be happy all the time. To be okay with the fact that I'm going to have to do some things that makes them mad, and that's okay because they don't need to be happy all the time. There are people in my life who I love and adore who do things that they know are going to make me unhappy, but they do them because that's what they have to do for themselves. It's not my job to make everybody happy all the time. And I want to share this with you because I want you to know that it's not your job to make everybody around you happy all the time either. That's not what you're supposed to do. I don't want you to get the impression either that this is a selfish thing that comes from a selfish place. It's more of you can't take care of anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? You know when you're on the airplane and they tell you, hey, if the plane starts crashing and your air masks come down, put your mask on first because you can't take care of anyone else if you're not breathing. That's exactly what it is. You can't give from an empty cup, right? You have to be able to take care of yourself if you're going to be able to take care of other people. So I know that's a whole thing, and it's a really long answer to your question, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot in my life. It feels like one of those INFJ theses, you know, where we think about something for a long time and all of a sudden we have the answer and it's this really long thing. That's exactly what it feels like for me. It's not just one thing. It's not just saying, okay, you don't have friends because you spend too much time at home. So if you didn't spend so much time at home, then you would have more friends. That's not really what it is. That's part of it, but it's a whole thing where a lot of things are connected to each other. And for me, it really comes back to self-love and self-acceptance. Because if we can't love ourselves, why would anybody else love us? Right? So the next question that I have from another listener, who I'm probably going to say her name wrong, and I really apologize. I think it's Rika. And she says, can you please give me some advice on how to love myself the way I am? I always feel like I need feedback from someone that I'm not crazy and that I'm not bad. Rika, I feel the same way, honestly. This question is something that I've been struggling with for a long time. And for the longest time, I thought that self-love was this concept that made sense to other people, and it never really made sense to me because I just never felt that way. But more recently, it's been something that keeps coming up and keeps coming up, and it's making a lot more sense to me these days. So I can tell you right now, I don't have all the answers, but I do have a few things that I can share with you. So the first thing, like we talked about before, is acceptance. Just like we accept other people the way that they are, it's important for us to accept ourselves the way that we are. You know, to look in the mirror and to say, I love you the way that you are. Not when you lose 20 pounds, not when you graduate from high school or college, not when you get the perfect job or when you have the perfect boyfriend or husband or significant other, but to look in the mirror and say, I love you, I love me just the way that I am. because I'm perfect just the way that I am. I don't need to change anything. There may be things that I want to change, but that doesn't mean that I need to change them in order to be loved. And the next thing is an awareness. Like we talked about, where does this self-love deficiency come from? And to have that awareness of it and to say, okay, I understand that this is an issue here and I'm working on how to change that. I'm looking for ways to be able to correct those negative emotions in my head, to correct those negative thoughts, to stop them in their tracks and to say, okay, that didn't come from me. That came from this person who said that about me, and I just accepted it as my truth, where it's not really true. Just because one person says something about you doesn't mean that you need to accept it as your truth. I am so guilty of that. But it's something that I have an awareness of now, and I can say, okay, let me consider what that person said, and to really think about it. And I try hard to think about it from a logical perspective and then say, okay, wait a minute. Just because they think that doesn't mean it's true. And it's okay for me to consider it, but not accept it, and then to put it down because it doesn't belong to me. That's their opinion, and it's fine that they have that opinion, but it's not my opinion. Another thing that you can do that's incredibly important is to take time for self-care. Instead of running away from yourself, try to spend some time alone and spend that time doing something special for yourself, something that you really enjoy. For me, I love taking hot baths. I just moved into an apartment that doesn't have a bathtub. It has a shower instead, which I hate because I love taking baths. I'm going to have to find another way to take a bath because I love taking baths. Something else is to read your favorite book, or to go for a walk in nature, or to cook your favorite meal. Anything that you can do for yourself that makes you feel good, that makes you feel pampered. And another thing is to know that you deserve better. You deserve to feel the same kind of love and appreciation and acceptance that you're giving to all of those other people in your life. You deserve that for yourself as well. It's important for us to remember these things and to keep ourselves at the front of our minds as well. I know that we tend to focus on everybody else in our lives, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're making time for yourself as well. Okay, so I have a couple of stories that I want to share with you. The first one is about intuition, and it's from Krishna in Indonesia. And she says, I've just read your article about intuition. It's right. Sometimes my friends think that I have the sixth sense or something like that. It can be a blessing, but sometimes it's a curse. One day I had a best friend. She's close to someone else before I came to be her other best friend. So she is my best friend's best friend. Something happened, she passed away, and it was a great loss for my best friend. When I saw her, I didn't know where the thought came from in my mind, but I said, I'm not sure you can survive without her. I didn't say anything to anyone until now. A year later, she died. I know it was cancer, but still. Another case is that when one person, family or close friends, come to my mind a lot, usually that person is in trouble, whether it's just being sad or they need to talk or they need a shoulder. Then I come in the right time. But then I hate when I think about a person a lot, there must be something that happens. When I have an argument with my sister and she comes to mind a lot, I will be the one to make reconciliation. Then she usually cries when she tells her problem to me. So intuition for INFJs is real. We can't control it, sometimes we just ignore it. But no matter how hard we ignore it, it will always come back again. Don't waste your time telling people about your intuition. Just take action when needed. When it happens, and almost always happens, you can suck it up for yourself or just grin like a winner. Live with it and love your life. With love, Krishna. Krishna, thank you so much for sending that. I completely agree with you 100%. I always get scared when one of my family members comes to mind. Sometimes for me, it almost happens like a dream or like a thought that just pops into my head that's like, hey, what if this happened? And sometimes it's something good, but a lot of times it's usually something bad. And I try really hard to push those thoughts away because sometimes it's super scary. And I usually want to call them as well and be like, hey, is everything okay? Because, and I never want to tell them, well, I had this really bad dream and I was scared that it actually happened. Because a lot of times it does happen. Or something very similar to what I thought about or almost dreamed about happened. And part of it, I think, is because my mind wanders in so many different directions, I see or think about a lot of what could happen, and then one of the scenarios actually does come true. So, yes, it's definitely scary, but it's also completely amazing as well. Okay, so our next story comes from Michelle, and she says, how do I describe my INFJ intuition? To me, intuition is an extension of my spirituality. I will have gut instincts about people or situations or about something completely random, and I believe this instinct is my higher power and the universe guiding me. It is super hard to explain to people in my life because sometimes I will meet a friend's boyfriend or meet someone at a gathering, and I will base my opinion about this person solely on my intuition about them and the energy I feel coming off of them. A lot of times the people in my life will ask for examples of why I feel a certain way, and most times I cannot give them much more than talking about the energy or the vibe of the person or situation. I use my intuition to make any decision pretty much. It works for me because I have learned, through a lot of trial and error, to trust my intuition more than anything else. I was in a relationship with a recovering alcoholic. I'm in sobriety as well, and my partner had relapsed. I had a feeling about them relapsing without a lot of evidence to back up the feeling. But I knew it was true. I listened to my intuition, and I got out of their relationship when I needed to. I have always felt secure in my decision to leave their relationship because when I make a decision based off of what my intuition is telling me, I'm confident in that. Michelle, thank you so much for sending in your story. I'm so sorry that you had that situation with your relationship. I've made decisions like that before, and it's difficult because, like you said, people want hard examples. They want proof and they want evidence, and we don't always have evidence. Sometimes we just have a feeling. But in my experience, it's better to trust in those feelings because I've lived through not trusting in those feelings so many times and realized that I should have trusted in the feeling. So a lot of it comes from experience. Okay, so the next story that we have is from Alyssa from North Carolina. And she says, I, along with a lot of INFJs, I'm sure, hate the question, tell me about yourself. Reason being, I immediately go to an existential place in my mind and ponder where my soul is from and what my intention is here on Earth. Needless to say, I've always felt like an alien. I'm just a soul trapped in a humanoid body trying to navigate this energy field. I'll try to narrow it down to major points, but it'll be hard. I'm Alyssa. I come from a long lineage of psychics, and it is certainly overwhelming at times. I don't see spirits, I'm not clairvoyant, but I am clairsentient and claircognizant, clear feeling and clear knowing. I hate when people say, okay, tell me what I'm thinking then, when it just doesn't work that way. I have dreams about someone the night something is happening, or it'll fall on the day after, typically scary events. I always reach out to the said person to check in and not exactly say what happened, but kind of try to dig it out of them gently, and in some capacity, it's always spot on, or a metaphor of something in their lives. I've had a strong connection to the angelic world since I was young, and when I tap in, it's such an extraordinary, unexplainable feeling, hard to quantify with our limited human vocabulary. I have had dreams about past lives and followed up with research. They were always accurate. I freak myself out sometimes because it's never intentional. When the spirit is around, I can always feel it or sense it. Still can't see or hear though, and I prefer not to. Growing up in a physically, mentally, and sexually abusive home, my creativity was majorly stifled. My healing outlets were writing, always, music, piano to be exact. I always wanted to take lessons, but my parents forced me to try out for sports instead, which I failed miserably. I became the worst self-critic and developed some mental health issues since leaving at 17, and I've been on a journey of self-healing. I'm now 26. As an advocate type, I've been passionate about social justice since I could recognize injustice in the world. I'm small and quiet, but mighty when it comes to fighting for the rights of those whose voices are muffled and lack representation. I always questioned why we only learned about Dr. Martin Luther King in history growing up. I have such a strong connection to his soul. Dr. King, also supposedly an INFJ, gave his I Have a Dream speech exactly 30 years before I was born. I've been obsessed with him since my teens. He was the seed that planted my core foundations of an altruistic spirit here on earth. I've served my whole life, starting with animals when I was young, did food and beverage, retail like most teens, worked in a rehabilitation assisted living home, but always craved more. I sold my car at 21 and took off to teach English in China with $450 in my pocket, fearless. The best memories of my life, I can't even express the depth and love I felt. I taught all ages in many provinces, from upper-class wealthy students to lower-income students in areas that had little to no means. I quote class because I hate putting people in boxes based on their income and status. Humanity always has to define and quantify everything. Anyway, I saw major oppression and injustice in China as well as the United States, which propelled me even more into my already book-obsessed self-healing journey and pursue my degree in justice studies and sustainability. Came back and worked in kindergarten and led an after-school program for a liberal arts school. I've hit massive roadblocks in my life, housing and money insecure being number one. I had to drop out and quit due to homelessness, living in my car, because I couldn't focus on my studies. I bounced around on couches, floors, Airbnbs, you name it. It was just me, my books, and clothes. Fast forward a bit, I found my mentor in North Carolina, who found my writing online and invited me to come and work with him. So whimsical, I took off completely unsure of what was on the other side. This man is an earth angel. He tested me in so many ways spiritually and taught me so much, but also exasperated my social anxiety. I hate public speaking. One-on-one healing is perfect, but we did group healing, and when he'd make me talk, I couldn't get words out. I still thank him for teaching me what he had, but I didn't appreciate the lack of nourishment on my introverted side. I'm at constant battle with myself. I have loud opinions and knowledge from my 26 years of life and study on this planet, but feel most comfortable when the attention is not on me, around others. I'm also too energy sensitive. I can feel others' emotions and I have to retreat, which makes me feel isolated and depressed at times. He introduced me to two of my three best friends and were soulmates, and knew it the second we met. So after North Carolina, I got back into school with the same studies and went to work at a summer camp in 2017. I've never had a more horrifying experience in my life. I was on the management team, but was there as a trip leader. I love the outdoors. Unbeknownst to me, I signed up to be a front and center dancing clown for 3 months. I'm sure you can imagine my social anxiety and discrimination I received from fellow management team. During this time, I didn't have a period for the entire summer. I was slowly but surely declining, running out of energy, could hardly breathe. Something was wrong, seriously wrong. I had always experienced horrific periods growing up and knew I had issues but didn't know the extent. I saw many doctors feeling like I was exploding inside my female parts, and I was dismissed my entire life, just written off like a faker. Being as intuitive as INFJs are, I knew it was more. From March to October, I had no period. In November, I got married, and my husband was and has been here through these tumultuous 2 years. In the middle of November, it drastically took over my life. It felt like I was stabbed in the uterus. I was rushed to the ER, the classic, blood work is normal, you're good to go, here's some ibuprofen. I spent the last 2 years alone in my bed, slowly deteriorating. What started with pain only on my period turned into every day. I describe it as a machete being torn down from my occipital bone, down my right shoulder, clavicle, neck, armpit, down to my arm, into my fingertips, and would radiate to my hips and toes every single day. agonizing pain. My mental health drastically declined. I was more isolated than ever and so desperately wanted answers. After endless months of research, I came across what happened to be the best endometriosis surgeon in the world. He happened to live 9 hours away from my home at the time. I cried tears of joy until I was finally able to get in to see him 3 months later. During the waiting period, I lost my best friend and roommate to suicide. I found her body. This exasperated everything, and it's been a blur since March. I had to move out, which left my husband, PTSD support dog, and I homeless again. My appointment was in June. I had a laparoscopy done, which turned into a few other procedures too. I was diagnosed with thoracic and abdominopelvic endometriosis. Tissue and fibroids blocked my uterus 95% with no ability to procreate other humanoids, attacked my ovaries, colon, and bladder, had made its ugly way to my lung, which would have killed me. This is a form that 99% of doctors aren't even aware of. My doctor was in his 70s. He's a pioneer in Palo Alto, California. During all of this, being in another school, getting my degree as an integrative healing arts practitioner to apply my healing methods as restorative justice in future law school, being homeless, trying to survive, I was fighting for the rights of my deceased best friend. She was an INFJ too. With all of this being said, my Myers-Briggs type has helped me humanize myself and has given me more peace knowing I'm not alone. It's been a rough journey, but studying the personality types has helped me cope with life. Only 1% of us in the entire population, which makes sense why I feel like such an outsider. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this. Alyssa, thank you so much for sharing your story. What an amazing story you have, honestly. You are such an incredible fighter. You've been through so much. I know exactly what you're talking about with the endometriosis pain. It is a terrible, horrible pain, and what I have isn't nearly as bad as what you had. But I know that it's ridiculous, and that it's really hard to get doctors to believe you that it is as bad as you say that it is. I'm so glad that you found one that was able to treat you, and I really hope that you're getting a lot better now. I also know what it's like to feel out of this world, to feel like you don't belong, like you're not like everybody else. And I'm so glad that finding out your personality type has helped so much. It's helped me a lot too. You have such amazing travels as well. I can't even imagine traveling to places like China and seeing the things that you've seen. I've been around the United States. I've been to England, and I've seen some poverty, but I've never seen anything like what you're talking about in China. So hopefully we can hear some more of your story sometime soon. Okay, so I have one other thing that I want to share with you, and this is from, I know that I'm going to say her name wrong, and I certainly apologize. I think it's Selinam, and she says, I've been following you for a while now and have been listening to your podcast. I relate to almost everything you say about INFJs. This podcast today really triggered some feelings for me. It's crazy because it's almost like I don't know what my personality is because I can play so many different roles. I don't think I'm a fake person, but I think all the different personalities I play, including my extroverted persona, is all a part of me. However, different people bring out the different sides of me. It really is a struggle being an INFJ. I understand completely what you mean. A lot of people call me fake, especially when I say, I create different personalities for different people. But I don't think that it's being fake either. I think that you're exactly spot on. That we have this really big, really complicated personality. And all of these people bring out different sides of our personality, different parts of it. And I've just recently realized that I'm kind of an outgoing person. As much as I want to say that I'm very introverted, which I am, I'm like, when I do the test, it's like between 85 and 95% introverted. So I like to spend a lot of alone time. But I've noticed that I also like to be around people. every once in a while. And when I go out to places, I like to be nice to them and to smile and chit chat. Anything that I can do just to make their lives a little bit better, even if it's just to say hi with a smile on my face. So I think that you're absolutely right that we're not fake, that each one of these people, they bring out different parts of our personality, and we just get to explore those a little bit differently with each person that we know. I like that explanation anyway. I like it a lot. All right, well, if you have a story that you'd like to share, I would love to hear it. Please send it to me, especially if you have any story about New Year's resolutions or about forming new habits, and any story that you have about relationships or about love. If you'd like to talk about it or share anything about it, I would love to hear about it. You can send your stories to podcast@infjwoman.com, or you can send them to me on Facebook or Instagram, which is @infjwoman. That's all that we have for today. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. I hope that you get to spend some time with your family and friends this week and really enjoy the holiday. I also hope that you get to spend some quiet time by yourself to rest and relax. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.